Hello, LinkedIn Live audience, and welcome to this month's live panel debate in celebration of Pride. I'll be your host, Claire Muscat, and I'm the very proud founder of Women in CX, the world's first online membership community for women in customer experience and technology. Before I introduce today's topic and my esteemed guests, I'd love to get the chat started. So, audience, please let us know, where in the world are you joining us from today? And while we're waiting for a few more people to join, in the background, I've got my amazing team supporting this live stream. Harley's there with you in the chat, and we'll be asking you the same questions that we're asking the panel. So please do feel free to get involved and share your thoughts too. Just to tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do, Women in CX is a vibrant and inclusive community of women and allies dedicated to advancing women professionals in the field of customer experience and technology. We believe in the power of diversity of opinion and the necessity for new thought leadership to drive CX forward in a digital age. We encourage our members to challenge conventional notions, share unique perspectives, and contribute their fresh insights. And we believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential for driving much needed innovation in the CX space. Our mission is clear: to empower and unite women working in various roles, industries, and levels within customer experience and technology to collaborate, learn from, and support one another, and believe that by embracing diverse viewpoints, that's how we're going to propel customer experience forward. Women in CX actively activates for intersectional gender equality in the CX industry, leading the way by example in promoting inclusive practices and raising awareness of the challenges women face. And with 70% of women at the front line of customer experience being female and only 30% making it into management, we've got some serious work to do. But celebrating the achievements of women in the field and recognizing their contributions is at the heart of what we do. If you already follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram, you'll see and hear the voices of our members being amplified through our social media channels and podcasts. No doubt make meaningful connections at our upcoming in-person and online events, and enjoy the unparalleled experience of our global gathering annual conference on the 10th of October in London. But if you want to discover a supportive community where diverse voices are celebrated and new ideas are welcomed, you can find out more about Women in CX by visiting our website. Just Google Women in CX and you'll find us right at the top of the rankings. But if you're ready to play a more active role in community and accelerate your personal and professional development with the support of a tribe of fellow courageous, collaborative, authentic, and inclusive women in CX, the Women in CX Inner Circle might be the right place for you. This is a paid space designed by women for women with access to our private members-only social media platform, exclusive events, mentoring scheme, discussion forums, our member directory, regular thought leadership updates, and infinite opportunities to raise your profile. And to be honest, so much more. This is the place to take part and experience your own career transformation. But don't take my word for it. The Inner Circle's flooded with success stories of promotions, pay rises, new jobs, and brave adventures. And with Wix courses opening soon, we can't wait to see what our members achieve next. The Inner Circle is open to applications now. So if you'd like to find out more about joining the Women in CX Inner Circle waitlist, Harley has pasted the link in the chat just now, and we'd absolutely love to see you there. We even offer social pricing and free scholarship places for women out of work to ensure all social and economic barriers to taking part are removed in the spirit of true equality. So without further ado, in keeping with our mission, we're bringing you a particularly important conversation on DEI from the community Inner Circle, live to you, our audience today on LinkedIn. And as a reminder, this panel is going to be discussing authentic allyship, inclusive customer and employee experiences for the LGBTQ community. But before we start, I just thought I'd take a look and see who's here. Oh, we've got Julie over in Canada. Oh, hi, Chris, one of our allies. Lorna from Malaga, Alex from Glasgow, Shamim in Wales. Oh, so many people. Jerry in Georgia, Alexandra over in... Oh, it's lovely to see you again too. Alex in Brazil. Wow. Sana, I think I'm saying that right, in Rotterdam. And you know what? That's amazing to see. We've got both women and allies showing up to hear this conversation today. So it's great to see you all. So to introduce this panel, let's think about setting the scene for this conversation. And that is that with rainbow flags everywhere right now, we're seeing them all over social media. We know it's Pride Month, but this debate promises to shed light on the critical issue of our time, which is genuine support versus performative allyship. We've gathered a rich tapestry of women in CX who are bringing their own lived experience to this conversation. From practitioners to activists, each woman you'll hear from today is bringing her own unique perspective to the discourse. Our panellists will unravel the complexities of fostering inclusive and supportive environments for both customers and employees, and will spearhead the dialogue on identifying and tackling instances of performative allyship. Our central theme is an exploration of the best practices for cultivating an environment that's not just supportive and diverse, but also warmly welcoming to LGBTQ plus individuals. Pardon me. We're delving deep into approaches that ensure business commitments to this cause are not confined to Pride Month, but permeate the fabric of the organisation as part of their long-term strategy. Through the lens of real-world examples, tangible, actionable recommendations, our panellists will underscore the importance of inclusion. So buckle up for what is undoubtedly going to be an invigorating panel debate that we hope will not only enlighten you, but also provide valuable insights and practical guidance. We're all here to learn and to share and to promote a culture of genuine allyship and inclusivity in our workplaces and how we engage with our customers. And audience, we really want you to get involved by commenting in the chat, asking questions, and we promise we'll dedicate the final 15 minutes to asking the panel your biggest questions on DEI. So let's set the stage for a more inclusive future for customers and employees starting today. So without further ado, for real this time, please welcome on stage CX Queens, Andrina Lian, LGBTQ plus activist, author and speaker, Adriana Salazar Hidalgo, ex-semi-professional footballer and a founding member of Women in CX, and our very own Meg Coates, head of operations here at Women in CX, who's recently been causing a stir with the publication of her own thoughts on performative allyship. Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Very well,
it's
thank
great
you.
to be here.
Yeah, oh no, just saw Adrian Swinscoe's popped up and said hello as well, another one of our awesome
Hello,
allies.
Adrian.
Fantastic to see so many men and women in the chat today. So let's kick off with intros. It'd be great if you could share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and what pride means to you. And I'm going to go with Andrina first.
Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me to share my lived experience. I'm Andrina Lian. I'm a lived experience speaker, writing workshop facilitator, poet, and author of this fantastic poetry book, Charred. Thank you. I'm also an out and proud lesbian woman living in London, and Pride means a lot to me because although it's a celebration, it's still a protest. We're still fighting for our basic human rights. So Pride to me is about visibility, authenticity, and standing up for those in our community who may not be able to be their authentic selves right now for whatever reason.
Wow, that's a great description. Adri, you're next.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I'm originally from Costa Rica. I have 49 years and 27 more or less living in Europe, approximately the same time that I have been coming out as a lesbian, and my pronouns are she and her. As Claire already explained, I'm an ex-soccer player, and I started in 2008 when I joined Panteras Grogas, which is like Yellow Panthers, an LGBTQ plus sports league in Barcelona. And I coordinated several divisions there in that association, and then further going into other activism through volunteer. I'm actually Pride volunteer for Barcelona July 15th. So everybody welcome to Barcelona. And as a founding member of Women in CX and also Spain chapter lead, I will welcome you all to come for this event. It's absolutely fantastic. I always founded some time ago the first LGBT cruise for women in the Mediterranean. It was called the L Cruise. And what I do think Pride means is, first of all, acknowledge all the past generations fight for our rights and that we still have to be fighting every year and every moment. Because of any political change, this can actually disappear. And most of all, of course, it's about celebrating, feeling safe to speak out and to be visible.
Oh, love that. And I can attest to how amazing Women in CX Barcelona chapter events are. Having been there just recently. And Meg, I know you've been to Barcelona to visit Adri in the Barcelona chapter too. But would you like to tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, and your connection with Pride and what it means to you?
Yes. So I'm really sorry because I am going to be honest and I'm a bit nervous. So I'm like trying to keep the nerves cool because I'm used to being on the other side of the screen, like organizing the background. So this is the first time doing something like this. So I am head of operations for Women in CX. So I joined Women in CX just a couple of weeks before they went to launch on International Women's Day back in 2021. At the time, I was currently doing my master's degree at University of Chester in creative writing and publishing. And what started as a social media marketing internship turned into a role in community management. It then became the head of operations. So I now work across with a little, thank you, a little team across marketing and community. So I'm actually a 2 times published author with my customer on LGBTQ plus experiences and authentic allyship from companies. I'm an intersectional feminist, which means that I am, well, to explain intersectional feminism. So intersectional feminism is all about equality, but not just for white women. It's equality for all women, no matter how you define. And Pride to me is about being able to bring my full self to the table, but it's about everyone else being able to bring their full selves to the table as well. And a lot of what's already been said in terms of, Pride was initially, it was a protest, it was a riot. And there are still so many places around the world where we're not accepted. And, we have to, I think, acknowledge that and remember that, but also keep talking and fighting for visibility where we can. So, yeah.
Well done. And yeah, this is your first time being front stage, and I'm incredibly proud of you. So, well, let Meg take a little breather. And Andrina, I'm going to ask you the first question of our debate, which is, how can customer experience professionals differentiate between genuine support and performative allyship within their organization? And I'm sure it'll be helpful for the audience to understand the difference, if you wouldn't mind explaining and helping us understand that.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So allyship, what is allyship? Allyship is about helping and supporting marginalized communities,
But I wanted just to make the time to share a quote that I heard last week on the work Pride, that ally is a verb. It is intentional action on supporting LGBT or any other kind of social groups that feel that they're limited outside. So for me, that it's allyship, and it's not only for the people that don't identify with that group, but also with the people that do identify and have the power and the voice to help others to feel the same, to feel safe in that space.
Yeah, so a bit like love, it's a doing word, not something passive. That's a really, really helpful way to explain it. I think Adrian, oh no, still coughing.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening.
It's when we go live.
To check in on me. I'm all right, Renee. I think my throat just got really dry.
Oh,
and it felt like my throat got closed together.
Oh no.
So that will help me also to say I'm gonna drink.
I was trying to multitask and also listen to what Adriana was saying as well.
Keeping it real here on Women in CX Live.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I don't know what just happened. But yeah, allyship is about supporting people and actually not being performative. If we think about what a performance is, it's like an act, isn't it? So for example, if like I went to a well-known shopping center the other day. I saw it all branded on their website that this company, I don't want to name and shame them, but they said they support plus size women. They have clothes in all shapes and sizes. I went into the store under these false pretenses, went in there to look for something to wear, and they didn't have my size. They said they do stock the sizes, but they're online. So to me, that's performative, because you're showcasing all the clothes on display that are like a size 6, women's size, UK size 6 to a size 18, but anybody above that, it's actually showing that we're not welcome in store to actually buy the clothes. We can actually shop online. So performative is about doing things that make you look good or make you appear to be good, but not actually supporting. So even if we stick to, say, retail in that same sort of scenario, what if the company on their website says, we support LGBT people, we do all of this stuff, this is how fantastic we are, it's all over their branding, and then one of their staff is actually discriminated against in the store. A customer comes in and I don't know, one of their LGBT staff, for example, gets harassed or spoken down to or treated in a really terrible way in the store, and then the organization, the store, doesn't actually do anything about it to support that colleague. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's when you think about performative, when I think about performative, I'm thinking about like what are they doing it for? And the people who they are saying that they're supporting, we can see we can see when it's performative or not. We can see by the actions when something happens, because as soon as something happens, they're no longer supporting.
That leads perfect.
Yeah, we've seen recent examples of that.
Yeah, Meg's going to share some of those, I think. So I think that we're not afraid to name and shame women in CX. So I know Meg's been writing about this, as I said earlier. She's been published talking about some examples of performative allyship. So Meg, what are some of the key indicators of performative allyship, particularly in marketing campaigns and customer interactions, and how can businesses avoid these pitfalls? What have you been seeing? Let's name and shame.
So there are 3 key things that I would like to talk about regarding this. So the first point is, do they include LGBTQ stories and people all year round, or is it just something that shows up during June? This is a very obvious indicator. And when I was doing the research for my article, I ended up asking like a lot of people, like, what are some key indicators to you? Like, what do you see as like being like good allyship? And the first thing that most people said to me was, do they include LGBTQ people in their marketing all year round? Is it just during June? Is it just during Pride, when they want to be seen as becoming part of the conversation without actually having to take too many steps forward? The second one is use of language. Now, this comes in like many different shapes and forms. So there are 2 key examples that I want to talk about. So the first thing is, this was to do with selling clothes, and I think I've mentioned this one before, but specifically to do with a store that was selling Pride merchandise, and they were selling a t-shirt that was the non-binary flag, but you could only buy the flag in either a men's size or a women's size, which kind of defeats the whole point of being a non-binary individual. You don't subscribe to being male or female. So to sell them in those kind of shirts just shows not understanding of those or that part of the community. And the second example is when we're doing survey forms as customer experience practitioners. We're creating and designing forms for people to be filling in, thinking about the options when we're asking people for gender, just to include men or women, is also excluding a big part of your audience that isn't going to trying to think of the right words of how to explain this.
Yeah, not willing to, not going to identify as one or the other. There
are
the shades that you're not catering for. I get you.
Yeah. So for me, a good replacement would be to offer people the chance to self-identify for that. And then the third one that I would like to mention is the up-marketing of Pride items without clear indication of where the extra money that's being paid for these items to go. The one example that comes to mind for me is from Vaseline last year, where they were selling 2 containers. I walked into Superdrug and I saw 2 specific containers, one which was their regular one and one which was their regular one, but it had a little rainbow on it. Now the rainbow one was an extra £1 than the regular one, and there was no clear indication as to if that £1 was going to a charity for LGBTQ+ or if it was going to the company. And even I tried to like research online afterwards to be like, why is this an extra £1? And the only thing I could tell was that the sticker had a rainbow on it, and that was the reason why they were charging an extra £1. Whether or not that was actually the case, who knows, because there was no clear indication as to what that was actually doing. So they're the kind of the three key points for me.
Okay, and I think you've got some more examples to share later about news headlines.
I have to add here now.
Yeah, go.
One, it's soccer related as well. When soccer female teams started to play, we used to have these big uniforms, men's size. We didn't have women's size uniforms, and I played like 2 or 3 years. It's sponsored by companies that didn't look like they were sponsoring a female team, but only the soccer game, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah. So what businesses are saying or claiming to get either, I suppose, benefit through engagement and reach with their audience around times of pride, or actually profiting from putting rainbows on things, is the challenge. And I think there's some really great highlight examples there from all three of you of the difference between doing something because you want to look like you're supporting versus the actual genuine active verb word of action in delivering performative true allyship. So Ajay, back to you again. What do you think organizations could do to support the LGBTQ plus community beyond pride and ensure that it becomes inclusion becomes part of their long-term strategy?
Well, with my experience in NGO and associations, LGBT associations fundraising, I didn't find myself with a company that will knock on my door and say, what would you like me to do? So I think this is an action that can be done actually very proactively, looking for LGBT community associations or activities where we are needing even funds or support from outside, and to bring their true self into the action or into whatever the event is, even though it's not done in Pride. And for me, it's important that every company does its own way, but they can actually share between companies and organizations the best practices that they can find out. I'm going to put an example. There will be a bunch of them, especially locally and in every country and every city. But mygwork.com, it's a union of a lot of companies that share how much they care, how intentional they are, the actions, and how can they actually put things into action in their local communities, and then also help other associations or other companies indeed to find their own way, their own journey. So acting locally and asking for the entities that are held in these activities all around the year, how can I help? Like in New Amsterdam series, this quote, like, how can I help? It's something that makes sense to me. And also LGBTQ are customers. People are customers to brands. If you can identify them, research, finding their data specifically and understand their needs, like size in the t-shirts or whatever other thing that your products are. This is also very important. Make that voice of the customers be heard, to change things that you've been doing all the year long, and that you could probably little details that you could change to do that.
So in summary, saying if you don't know, ask. Critically, it's important to listen to LGBTQ plus customers, and the importance of including diversity within a research. And I think I just like calling back to Christine Hemphill's webinar when she's talking about disability inclusion, that actually there's a lot of value in being able to research at the margins, because you'll get all of the generic stuff, but you'll get the additional needs and preferences as well. And that can be a really effective strategy. So Adrina, back to you again. What role do you think representation plays in customer employee experience, and how can businesses improve LGBTQ plus representation at all levels of their organization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can before my throat closes up.
Oh no!
And I pass out on the floor. Of all days, isn't it? As a speaker, I speak all the time, and this hardly ever happens to me.
Always the way.
There's lots of things that organizations can do, and there are so many organizations that are doing it well as well. Employee resource groups. There's lots of organizations now that are forming lots of different employee resource groups, like networks, Women's Network, LGBT Network, the BAME network, Accessibility Network, all these networks. And I think what they need to do is acknowledge that their employees, a lot of people that I speak to, right, they say, right, this is my gay job and this is my day job. They have their gay job and their day job. And a lot of the times they're not recognized, employees are not recognized for their gay job. They put in a lot of hours because they care about the cause. They care about amplifying voices of, marginalized communities. They care about the organization talking about LGBT rights and recruiting LGBT people. But a lot of the times those people are not supported. And then they leave the organization, and then that initiative kind of leaves with them until somebody else comes and picks up that work. I think organizations need to acknowledge that it is like really important, and it is like a job in itself. Like, I know organizations are doing well, like OVO Energy, they're really good. They they give their staff like well-being days off and things like that. Like, if you're doing additional work outside your job, there's perks. Some organizations are even saying to pay people extra for the extra work that they do, because it's quite exhausting work. And I think some of the problems are that organizations, they find like the token person, and then they parade them around, and then when things happen, they don't support them. So they need to actually support individuals who are doing this work and sharing their lived experience, and not relying on people within the organization as well. Like Adriana said, my G work is massive. There's lots of like even Stonewall, they have a workplace equality conference. There's lots of charities and organizations doing the work. There's even I can't remember what they're called, but they go into schools. They send speakers into schools, and they also go into organizations as well. So outsource this work as well. Like, find out what other companies are doing and what's working well. Even like OVO Energy, back to them, I want to just give them some props as well, because they've recently hired like a specific diversity and inclusion person, and they have done lots of work towards like like gender neutral language on things like parental forms. So like, the parental leave forms, they're not like maternity and paternity. They've changed the language around that. They've also, like, for people who are going through transition, they know that yeah, definitely, Shamim. I just read your thing, flashed up. Like, definitely, it does affect the organization's bottom line because people leave. But I was going to say that OVO Energy, they were saying that people, their employees, their members who are transitioning, because they know that the NHS here has really long waiting lists. They've actually got money put aside. There's funds to help their members to go through that transition process. And they're paying for that. Like, all of like what they need to do, what organizations need to do is understand the needs of the community that they're trying to support and help, you know, because if you just wave a pride flag, that's great for visibility, but it's the actions speak louder than words. Like, ask the community, what can we do to support you? How can we help make your life at work better? You know, and recognize as well that people belong, because of intersectionality, people belong to many different groups. Like, when I was at work, I could belong to the women's network, the LGBT network, the BAME network. And it's good if like all of those networks are not fighting for resources. They need to each have their own resources, but also have enough resources to collaborate on initiatives. Like, there's just so much that needs to be done, but it's more in the actions. Because if I go into an organization, I'm self-employed now, but if I was to go and work in an organization, I'm looking at all of what they're saying. I'm looking at their website. I'm speaking to people who already work there, who may identify as LGBT, or they're black and brown, or disabled, or whatever the intersectionality is. I'm going to do my research before I even think about like giving my time, because it's a two-way thing, isn't it? We spend a lot of time at work, we're giving ourselves to the organization in receipt of pay, remuneration, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's more than that. And if an organization cannot support or appreciate or acknowledge their members, they'll just lose them. And organizations are losing many good people. You just have to look at social media. Everyone's a creative nowadays. Everyone's doing their own thing, or so it appears. But people are making choices for themselves. They don't have to put up with being tolerated anymore. I think once we feel accepted and we feel like we belong somewhere, we're more likely to stay and just get on with our work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think such an important point is about putting budget aside to diversity, equity and inclusion, not just expecting existing employees within the organisation. I thought it's really important that you picked out the tokenism there as well, giving them all this additional work to do, not paying them anything, and despite the findings, not actually taking any action that is deliberate and change making within the organisation for the employees or for the customers. And I'm definitely going to go and check out that OVO example, because that wasn't one that was on my radar previously. So thank you for sharing those ones. I've got a comment from Jerry. So performative is a company that brags in their annual report all about their employee resource groups, but then expects group leaders to do the work on their own time without internal recognition and material rewards. Exactly that. Very, very well articulated there, Jerry, in the summary. So moving on from there, let's get into the positive, maybe a little bit more, and shine some examples of both good and bad examples of performative allyship. So what are successful examples of organizations that have moved beyond performative allyship and demonstrated genuine commitment to LGBTQ rights? Meg, I'm going to ask you this one.
Yes. Well, I think at the minute, I guess it's been really hard to think of some positive examples given all the negative stories we've been seeing in the media, especially from some really big brands such as Budweiser, Adidas, Nike, Target in particular, faced a lot of backlash recently after they went. The usual Target has got a pretty, well, previous years has always done big pride ranges. A couple of them become memes on social media, but they've always really gone in for pride. And of course, this year was no different. However, this year, given the hatred,
do you want to just tell the audience? The audience might not actually know about like what happened here. So you said like there's loads of examples. Do you want to just tell a little bit more of a story about what was Target doing and what happened, just so everyone's up to speed?
So Target launched their Pride campaign. So that included a whole line and range of merch. They put it in the front of the stores, in front of the windows, so that you could see that they were there, clearly visibly supporting Pride. And then there's been huge backlash from groups that that are anti-LGBTQ+, and made their feelings very well known, that they were very against the fact that Target had done this, including harassing staff and sending very emails and whatnot to
tweeting about it, weren't they? Like,
tweeting
social media,
everything,
yeah.
boycotting. And in response, Target's response was to take away the LGBTQ merchandise. They stopped selling certain items. They pushed all the stuff to the back of the store, so that they would kind of not be experiencing as much hate from the anti-LGBTQ plus movement. Now, this is an ongoing issue that's happened with many brands. Like I said, Budweiser and Nike partnered with, I'm going to butcher the name, Dylan Mulvaney.
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 Dylan Mulvaney.
Yes. So both partnered with, and then again, same thing happened. Boycotts and a lot of harassment, both towards Dylan and the company on and across social media. And again, the company's responses haven't been hugely supportive in terms of backing their decisions to put on these pride campaigns. Now, the problem is when we back down from these things is that we're sending a message that we're siding with hate. You know, that we will listen when people tell us that. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. When the hate becomes so loud that we will listen and we will back down from trying to support the individuals that need to be supported.
Defended, I suppose, in this case, wasn't it?
Defended as well, yeah. You know, there's not been, but on a more positive note,
we
have good examples too. So North Face, who again ran their pride campaign, they made a clear stance that they would stand by their pride campaign, and that's the kind of behavior that we want to see from companies, to know that, you know, you're not going to stand by this. Because as I was sort of reading through it, you know, either way you look at it, you're, you know, supporting a side. And
I think because we've talked about this, haven't we? We read it in your article. Yeah. It's going like, okay, so we value diversity, equity, and inclusion so much that we're going to support Pride, and we're going to, you know, actually deliver marketing campaigns that feature transgendered people or LGBTQ plus faces. And then the moment that homophobic customers start to come at them, we've got one example or three examples of saying, actually, maybe they aren't really our values, because we're going to back down from this and not show up for the people that we're apparently supporting during Pride. And the opposite reaction of North Face actually going, no, actually, we're going to keep this exactly where it is. We are supporting our campaign. We are supporting the people that we're featuring. And if you don't like that, you can go to the people who are being homophobic and bigoted. That's the distinction, isn't it? And you know, we talk about kind of authenticity a lot, don't we, in customer experience? That's the ultimate example, isn't it, of saying these are our values, and then when it comes to the crunch, not actually standing for them at all. And that's gonna do some seriously lasting brand damage. But let's say things more positive examples. And I've got some great examples for the banking industry, aren't there?
Yes. So NatWest recently introduced equal parental leave. So that's regardless of how the child was conceived, whether they were adopted, and whether or not the parents are heterosexual or same sex. So this is not only a win for LGBTQ plus individuals, but this is a win for heterosexual people too. Fathers who want to spend time with their children and take parental leave, you know, they'll now have the option to, you know, when we really try our best to include, you know, LGBTQ plus people, we're also making space to include pathways for, you know, not just them, but people that we wouldn't necessarily expect to include within this. So it is, taking those small actions, and other companies that have introduced the same or similar rules include Aviva, Spotify, Vodafone, and Etsy. So it's really nice to see that more companies are moving towards making equality available to everyone, not just a small section.
Yeah, I think that parental leave one's a really important example, and maybe it's not a coincidence, but that's also NatWest is the only UK British bank that has a female CEO. Maybe that's a connection there. Shout out to women in leadership. Is anyone else anything to add of like more positive examples?
I do have a positive example that it showed in the Work Pride in my Work Pride just a week ago. I met with Francisco Gallego, which is the D&I chief for Expedia. They don't have the colors in their flag, in their brand already.
Oh.
They haven't. They practically decided not to put it because they want to leave it first from the inner side and make the customers and the culture of the company speak for them. And when Andrina was saying about the people that the transgender people that wanted to do the transition and they didn't have the money, or they have to have these long queues for waiting, Expedia is paying actually for these operations, and it's having also a trans and non-gender conforming inclusion advisory council. I had to remember this in precise words because it impacted so much. It's not only ERGs. It's not only that the employees can get together and have their own common, let's say, conversations and feel safe, but also to have an open door that actually welcomes the people having issues with getting included, not only in the company but in the society. So my company can help me to get into feel more inclusive and belonging to the society, because it helps me from the inner side to face things that I have to face outside of working hours.
Oh, that's a really, really good example. So audience, we're getting close to the end of our panel now. We're thinking you might have some questions, and no question is off limits. Like, this is a safe space to ask questions. There's not going to be any assumption that anything that's said is going to be done so just from a lack of understanding. So here's your chance. If you have any questions, we've got a panel of lived experience specialists right here, right now, that you can ask your questions to. So I'm going to wait for some questions to pop up in the chat, and before we do, we've got a couple more questions to ask the panel. So Andrina, it's very confusing having Adrian and Andri. How can customer experience professionals work together with human resource teams to ensure a comprehensive approach to inclusivity and support for the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, I think HR needs to really understand the needs of LGBT people within the organization. There needs to be lots more impetus on training. There needs to be policies that really help and support marginalized people within the organization. And I think a lot of this is to do with communication. I think we've reached a time in society right now where a lot of people are scared of saying the wrong thing or don't know what to say. And some choose to not say anything because they don't want to say the wrong thing or say things wrong. I think we need to get to a point where we're having open discussions, open dialogue, and where people feel comfortable to voice their opinions, as long as it's not homophobic, racist, transphobic, and all that stuff. We need to have these spaces for open communication all year round. So HR really do need to understand the needs, because the thing is, like Adriana was saying, LGBT people experience things outside of work. Like, we experience discrimination from society. We experience discrimination from our families. Like, there's so much that goes on. We have like high rates of suicide, mental health and depression. Like there's a lot that we're having to contend with. And as soon as we're at work and our work performance goes down, we're having to go and see HR. And unless they understand the complexities that we face, they're not going to be able to holistically be able to help and support the individuals. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot going on inside of work and outside of work. But as soon as, I don't know, if HR need the training themselves. HR members really need to understand the issues that LGBT people face, and not just LGBT people with disabilities, mental health, like BAME communities, like they just need to have more awareness and understanding, because then they can really implement policies that can really come from a place of understanding. Because all of these conversations, right, people talk about how do we do better diversity and inclusion, how do we do this stuff, just be kind, show empathy, kindness and compassion to people, and know that whatever your actions are, that they're coming from a good loving place. So I think there's just a lot of work that needs to be done to get conversations, to have open conversations where people are not scared that they're going to lose their jobs if they say certain things, or
And so Christine, who I quoted earlier about the research, saying that she totally agrees about the importance of leadership and management. How could HR? Oh, that's a question. She's asking the question. How could? In fact, Christine, we'll come back to that one in a second. Sorry, I didn't realise it was a question. My bad for moderating terribly today. So I think in kind of summary, we're saying, there are these different aspects, aren't there, of DEI that, to use the word, intersect with people's identities, and that thinking about LGBTQ plus or BAME or women or any of the myriad of minority groups that have different needs and preferences is the ultimate story for customer experiences, being able to include them in all stages of customer experience research, design and delivery. And when it comes to brands, not just slapping a pride flag on everything and saying that we support LGBTQ, but not actually defending the group that they're supposed to be celebrating and supporting. That pride isn't a once a year month that businesses show up with their pride flags and start waving them. It's a 24/7, 365 embedded part of their organizational approach and strategy when it comes to people, process, technology. Every aspect has to be inclusive. And I think that kind of final point of nothing's going to change if we don't have open spaces to discuss things. People will continue to be scared that they're going to say the wrong thing. In understanding will only ever be performative in the form of a training module that's about awareness of DEI. Being able to have open conversations like this, I think, is a great start, and being able to facilitate spaces within organizations to have those conversations. I think what we've done today is important, right? Being able to showcase a lived experience rather than just online training or something, actually giving the mouthpiece over to people who've lived and breathed the feelings of exclusion is probably the most powerful thing we can do. So I think I'm going to ask our final question, because we've got 2 questions from the audience that we're going to ask in a second. But I'm going to ask you all the same question. What does genuine and inclusion and belonging actually feel like to you? That's a good one to end on.
Can I start with that one?
Yeah, you can.
I think it's having the opportunity to be your authentic self. All of us will be happier if we feel safer in the places that we perform, even if it's inside or outside the company. And if we're freelancers, of course, everywhere, right? Being human and being nice to the rest of the people, that compassion, it's actually what brings us to the space of belonging.
Yeah. And that's at the heart of what customer experience and employee experience is all about, right? Listening to, understanding and empathizing with people and delivering product, services and experience that meet and exceed those needs. Meg, how about you? What does inclusion and belonging feel like to you?
Oh gosh. I don't think there's anything that can really describe the true feeling of like just being able to turn up and be yourself. Like, it's euphoric, you know? Like, oh, I'm getting emotional, sorry.
I thought you would.
The first place where I
We love you,
I
Meg.
properly felt like I properly felt like I could be my genuine self and be included and felt like I belong was when I started working with you. So yeah.
Because you'll make me cry.
Because before then, I was always felt like I couldn't be myself necessarily, or that if I was, it was just very differently perceived, and just being able to turn up and kind of not have the assumption that I'm anyway inclined or into guys. It's like a really weird, like something that probably most people don't think about, because usually like one of the first things you'll kind of ask people is like, oh, like, you know, do you have a boyfriend? I get asked that a lot. No. is the answer. And for me to be able to, you know, just be able to turn up and be able to just talk about myself and be my authentic self and talk about the things that I'm passionate about, you know, there's nothing that can really compare. And until you've found that, it can be really isolating. And I feel for anyone who feels like they're not included at the minute and they don't feel like they belong where they're working. I think you have to go out and find the places where you will be accepted to be your authentic self. Because yeah, there's no feeling like it.
Oh my God, Meg, wow. I'm literally tearing up right here. That was beautifully put. Well, very well adequate, articulated, and yeah, so much love and so much support in the chat as well for you, Meg. And Andrina, last but not least, what does belonging feel like to you?
That's just so lovely. It's just really nice, because it's true, Meg. We can't describe that feeling. It's a feeling that is really hard to describe. Like, you know, I feel really nice when I turn up at a hotel and I check in with my partner, and the person at the reception desk doesn't assume that we're sisters or cousins or aunties, and they don't just automatically give us a twin room, and then I have to correct them and tell them actually we want a double bed. We're actually together. Yeah, so it's that feeling, isn't it? It's that feeling of when someone gets my name wrong at a networking event and someone else steps in and says, actually, her name is Andrina. And that feeling of being seen and all of that and supported is that feeling when I get booked to speak in an organization in November or September to share my lived experience about being a lesbian and being a mom and all of this stuff outside of LGBT History Month and outside of Pride Month. Like, it's a feeling that can't be put into words. It's another win every time when someone gets it right. So yeah, I don't know. You'd think, because I'm a poet and an author of this fantastic book, that I would have a word to describe that feeling. But yeah, I don't have a word right now. It feels warm and fuzzy when it's genuine.
I've just got the feels from you girls expressing that. So yeah, I think we found it. We felt the feeling.
There's no word to describe it.
No.
But it's feeling.
Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling. So Andrina, just to kind of follow up on that one, Chris had a question, which was what, you know, he's a white, cis, hetero, university educated male, and he's aware of the privilege he has. But what would be one thing that he could do to be a better ally? or anyone else if they feel like they've got.
One thing.
I think. Oh, you go.
No, go on, Meg. Go for it while I'm thinking about the answer.
I was going to say one thing that, I mean, I try to do this personally as well. But it's like, you know, if you ever hear anyone else saying something that's racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, you know, step in and, you know, try and, you know, call it out. Yeah. And ask them, you know, maybe a bit like, why it's not trying to like cause an argument, but stepping up for people, even if there's no one around you that's LGBTQ, but someone's being homophobic, transphobic, to call them out for it. It doesn't matter if people in the room can't hear it. It still, you know, needs to be called out and talked about as to, you know, why are we know prejudice is in all of us to some extent, right? We all have our own bias and prejudice, and it's an active thing that we have to do ourselves as well, to always be educating. Like even as, so like the LGBTQ plus community is so broad, really. It's an umbrella term for a lot of different identities. So I only like personally associate with like a couple of them, but I will still try and make sure that I'm listening to other LGBTQ plus people so that I can understand their experiences and I can be a better ally towards them as well. And so I think it's constantly educating yourself. And if you do hear someone that is being discriminatory in any way, to be able to call them out for it.
Yeah, that's a really strong one. And then Christine's question, because we have 2 minutes to go, agreeing with Andrina on the importance of leadership and management, how could HR or others support increased skills and understanding of lived experience and barriers and confidence to better manage and lead a diverse team, senior leaders and line managers especially?
I have to quickly reread the question because even though I've heard it, I don't think I fully understand it.
Yeah, I think it's like what ways can this be improved, or a business's capability in diversity, equity and inclusion, understanding lived experiences.
Keep doing the work. Just keep doing the work. Keep pushing in the right direction. See where the gaps are and try and fill those gaps. See what other organizations are doing well and, you know, contact them and say, I see that you're doing well in this and this. You've got good retention on your staff. How are you keeping those staff? Like, what are you doing? We want to learn from you. Learn, you know, nothing's... We're not just all like on this individual journey. Think of like all of this as like a collaborative event, like, and also about the previous question about how to be a better ally, just always think about like outside of yourself. Like we all have privilege. I think privilege, people talk about white privilege and all that, but all of us, no matter where we are on that wheel of power and privilege, we all have a level of privilege. Even me as an overweight black lesbian woman living in London, I have a level of privilege too. And I have to look outside of myself to see and to see the experiences of what others are experiencing. So it's about like asking ourselves realistically, how can we better support other people? And it's not about the big things, it could just be the littlest thing. But all of the little things add up to a lot.
Together. Yeah, the compound effect. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. So I'd just like to thank you so much for bringing your lived experience to the stage today. I know that for a couple of you, it's the first time you've done this. I think you did an incredible job and beat the nerves. Very, very proud of you, particularly, Meg. You did a fantastic first time panel guest. So thank you to the audience. Thank you to everybody who listened or watched along, wherever you are on the live stream. And we're going to keep talking about this. Diversity, equity and inclusion and belonging is at the core of what women in CX are trying to do. So please do stay tuned and continue to support us on our journey to driving change within the industry. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.